Welcome back to the Authentic Living Show here on 94.9 FM and AM 950 The Word. I'm Courtney Shaw, and joining me in the studio is Miss Melody Garcia. She's a #1 best-selling author, multiple award-winning writer, speaker, influencer, UNICEF leader, and so much more. She's here to inspire and equip us to persevere and break through mental strongholds. 2 Corinthians 10:4 says that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So today we want to go a little bit deeper in how we can break through these negative and toxic thoughts and be able to hold them captive and walk out a place of total health and freedom. We want to encourage you to walk out that journey for yourself personally so you're not affecting those close to you, and you can have relationships that are fulfilling and fruitful. And we want you to fulfill your purpose and not stay stuck in that cycle of crazy. So welcome, Melody, to the Authentic Living Show, girl.
Thank you so much. And hello, everybody listening. We are in for an absolutely amazing segment today. So I'm excited to be back.
I'm excited to have you for the whole show, girl. You came that one time, and that was like a tease. That 13 minutes went by in a vapor. So I'm like, you know what? Melanie needs to come camp out for the whole show. And later on in the hour, we're going to have Miss Janie Lacey.
Yes.
Awesome powerhouse, psychotherapist. And she's such a voice of hope in our community. And so I'm excited just to kind of, we call it a triple threat, right?
Yes,
yes. It's not a
perfect
1-2, it's a 1-2-3 punch. So we want to help people get unstuck. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, first and foremost?
All right. So, Courtney gave all the intro on the highlight, but I'm also a single mom with 2 sons.
That's right.
And guess what? I'm human, people, my listeners. I am, no matter what the tagline, Wonder Woman, how are you doing? All of this, I am subject to the same daily attacks all of you are going through.
No doubt.
And a little bit more about me. I am the founder of the UNICEF advocacy team, the 14th one in the nation. I am a writer. I'm also in media for Manila Up International magazine, and just wear the many hats. I don't really call them hats. It's more like activating all the God-given talents.
That's good.
For impact.
That's really, really good. And I think, again, it's in seasons, right? And I think a lot of people can look at our lives and, like you said, like, how do you do it all? And for me, it being in a season with, marriage and small children running around and balancing all of the things. But we do things in seasons. And like you said, just because we've made a decision to not allow our external circumstances or the things that come against us to hold us captive, it doesn't mean that we don't face things. The Bible talks clearly that the weapons formed against us are going to be made, but they don't have to prosper. And that's why we're here today, that we've come together to really take the mask off, show our authentic self, and take people through the process of really holding those thoughts captive, or the traumatizing circumstances that happen in our lives that we can't necessarily control. So I want our listeners to get to know you a little bit more today. And I want you just to open up and share what have been some of your greatest personal struggles that have really allowed you to find your voice, number one, take your pain, turn it into purpose, and take all of your tests and turn it into an awesome testimony. So now you're a beacon of hope for others. What did that moment look like for you where you had your breakdown to break through?
So I had many key moments in my life. It wasn't just one, because it's going to come at different parts of your life. And, I'm going to give you a key lesson right now, and then I'm going to tell you about my life. When those moments happen, they're all there to serve your growth and your purpose. So it's not the one big breakdown. There's several breakdowns that happen in life. So the first one that I can recall at an early age was the name calling, the tagging of you're an illegitimate child. You're the B word child. And that planted a seed of self-doubt, of feeling non-worthy and not good enough. Even though my parents gave us a protective environment, you were still subject to the labels of the world of not being good enough. So I didn't realize there were insecurities built in that were triggered until the adult life. The sense of competitiveness. There's a competition, there's a competitiveness, but there's this almost a different type of behavior that I was able to trace back of going, it comes back from not being good enough label.
And to be able to identify that root, right?
Yes.
And most of the times we go through our adult lives and we just live in this cycle of toxicity. And instead of responding to situations, we react and we're explosive and we're battling with these wounds that really God wants us to be completely healed and whole and free from. But we just don't sometimes want to do the work to go back to that painful place because it hurts. And nobody really wants to embrace pain. But pain is really a doorway to access our divine purpose and to walk in that place of healing.
Right. And we have to view pain in a different way. So we'll talk
It's true.
about that. The second major milestone that really derailed our life at that time was having to disappear in the middle of the night to leave the country because our lives were in danger, coming from a very comfortable lifestyle with maids, private schools, you name it, the best of the best, and literally leaving everything behind with nothing, to our name, and finding ourselves here in the United States. We've come here as tourists before, but to now stay with relatives. And, my mom, my sister, and I were sharing one bedroom. My sister and I had to sleep on the floor. Coming in the dead of winter with no winter clothes and getting hand-me-downs from church. And again, that feeling of not good enough, because we even went through even our own emotional traumas of that transition, of having to forget everything and starting life with absolutely nothing. Seeing my mother come from a highly successful entrepreneurship and corporate executive to now working at a 7-Eleven, making $3 an hour, being spat on by strangers in the middle of the night at a gas station, and having to bottle that all in of going, what just happened to our life? From a prominent family to the modern day Anastasia is what I call it, of nobody really knew what happened other than we had to disappear because our relative was murdered. And they thought we knew something because it was one of those government conspiracies.
Sure.
And that jaded me. But it also gives me wisdom that we're going to be, again, sharing here.
That's right.
Then comes the divorce, right? A divorce, a marriage that was ridden with toxicity that I've had to learn to forgive. And now we've become friends after almost 3 years of being divorced.
Wow.
But in 17 years of that, guess what? I became the perfect chameleon because here I am as a public figure starting up. I've always been on stage, as that's why Courtney was teasing me earlier about being born with a microphone, that perfecting that chameleon effect of fooling the world while internally I was suffering. And I was just dead inside. You get into that point where it just lights, camera, action all the time, even with the public.
That's so true.
And realizing that this is not what God had purposed me to be. And it was one of the hardest decisions because the guilt of I'm breaking up a family was internal when I had to go back to the actual word.
Wow.
And say, so there was many more after that. These are just some of the highlights I'm giving you.
And that takes such courage. And I really want to hit on this too. And this is something, Saturday that I just really wanted to hit at our Women in Ministry event. So many times, especially women that are called to be in a public platform and really have that calling and that mandate on them to help ignite hope within others. It doesn't take away from private struggles. And I think that sometimes we can feel so much pressure to perform instead of really find ourselves in a safe place to surrender to the purposes and plans that God has for our life. And it's so easy to almost lie to ourselves enough to where we can believe it until you get to that point where you can't sleep on it anymore. You wake up to it and it's just there staring in your face. And I said, one thing that I was tired of doing in my journey, and just this sounds exactly where you were tired of faking it until you make it. You wanted to truly faith it until you made it. And I think so many times fear will grip us, of fear of people's opinions or fear of failure, or like, what if my family falls apart? Because you suffered from that as a young child. Your family went through a lot of trauma. And so we want to prevent our children from going through that. But at the same time, we can't forsake our safety and our wholeness and well-being as well.
Exactly. And you get to a point where you can't breathe anymore. Right. And so part of the breakdown, because when that, end of marriage happened, it's always at your lowest point you really get to know who your real friends are.
Oh, yeah.
Because even at that, at the time I couldn't understand what was happening. Looking hindsight, as God was removing those people that were no longer part of my journey.
That's right.
That served as a growth, but the toxicity that I was surrounded with, I didn't realize until he took everything away and everything went away. At that time, I actually went through a period of questioning my own faith, questioning his existence, because the pain was so severe. And just like you, I had suicidal thoughts of just going, why don't I just end my life? Because the pain was so great. But part of the breakthrough as we transition was the curiosity of what the heck was at the end of this was greater.
Come on.
Because one of the things that came through to me, and this continues to ground me every day when I come against, situations that would test me, is that the attacks on your life has nothing to do with who you were, but everything to do with who you will become.
Come on, Melody.
And when I heard that, because you get to the period of depression where you isolate yourself from everybody and no one can get through to me. Again, the perfect art of being a chameleon.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, I'm busy. And I mean, I was obviously always busy, but I'm busy, but I also extracted myself from any contact because you just want to fall apart and you just want to end it all. But my one friend got to me with Lisa Bevere's 30-second video of basically, again, let me repeat, the attacks on your life has nothing to do with who you were or are, but all to do with who you will become.
Absolutely. And it truly is the battlefield of the mind. The enemy, the Bible talks clearly about the enemy's mission is to steal, to kill, and destroy. And he comes at us with a vengeance. He will throw everything at us. And I say, and the kitchen sink, right?
Yes.
Especially if there's that divine purpose in us, which it's in all of us. And I think one of the biggest things that the enemy likes to do is to keep us so wrapped up in our external circumstances that we get so stuck in that cycle that we can't really slow ourselves down and open up our hearts to surrender, right?
Right.
To God's power, to be able to be present in the presence, practice his presence in the presence, and to be able to receive that supernatural strength to go through these obstacles. So I want to talk a little bit more too, because what did that action step look like? You were at that point of hopelessness. You had isolated all the people around you. Nobody could really speak into you until you heard that one message, that 30-second message that reminded you not only of who you are, but whose you were and what God had placed inside of you. So what was that first step to action for you?
Well, you're going to laugh because first I was angry.
I think that's normal,
And then I
right?
had to remember that in all that surrounded my life that still had me impact over 20,000 lives halfway around the world through that movement called One Night, One Voice that I shared the last time I was here. That's the curiosity. That was my first action step. If I was able to impact over 20,000 lives, what in the world was in the horizon that the enemy was really trying to take me down? So I had to change my line of questioning of blaming God to attacking the enemy and yelling at the enemy of going, what are you so scared of? Whose life am I supposed to impact? What course is this about to take that you're taking and doing everything to destroy me? So be curious enough was the first step that I took to even be bold enough in faith and word to also address the enemy.
So powerful, Melody. Well, we are going to come right back after this commercial break with so much more from Melody Garcia. She has taken us on a powerful journey to go from a place of pain into purpose. And we want to help you break through today. So don't go away. You're listening to The Authentic Living Show here on 94.9 FM and AM 950 The Word, where faith comes by hearing.